build social enterprises, organizations, NGOs after doing this course. Last but not least, what is it that people have benefited? And I'll tell you this through a story. This again is many years ago, and that's why at that time it seemed very strange, but now it doesn't seem anymore very strange. This would be at least 10 years ago. But I was traveling in the northeast of India on work, and I think that work was related to some project that IIM had taken up. And at some point in time, somebody from here reached out to me saying that Google is desperately trying to locate me. You see, the network connectivity in the northeast of India, at least in those days, was very, very poor. In the extreme corners, you could get Chinese transmission, Chinese transmitters, not Indian waves. So I had zero connectivity. So somebody here contacted my home, and when I called up home, they told me, Google is trying to contact me. I said, I haven't applied for a job to Google. Why on earth would Google be looking for me? Then it came out that somebody who'd done this course, and very proudly, and he was an exchange student, had very proudly written that in his CV, and he was applying for a job to Google. Google cleared everything, but they wanted to verify the experience that he'd actually had working for that NGO from the professor. And his appointment letter was kept waiting for a couple of weeks for me to provide that authentication. So that point in time I realized, and since then I find many people in India also, because ultimately if you are an IIM or IIM Calcutta person, you are an IIM Calcutta person. Okay? That doesn't differentiate you from the next guy from IIM Calcutta. It doesn't differentiate you from another person from IIM Calcutta. You all are supposed to know finance, strategy, marketing, blah, blah, blah. It's all there. What is different about you? Maybe a sport you play, maybe you swim well, maybe you can get them something in a sports competition, maybe some award that you got convinces them, or sometimes it has happened that the clincher has been the live project that that person has done for an NGO, and that is something that has stood out on the CV in such a way that the person could get the job he wanted. And this has happened several times with me. So I find that even getting a high-ticket salaried job with a good corporate is also possible through this course. I didn't believe in that before it happened, but I've seen so many instances of that happening that, I'm convinced that that is another reason why people would take up the course. Now, without further ado, now I'll go to the presentation, because then otherwise I'll run short of time. So, this is something you can read for yourselves. So some of you have done business entrepreneurship, some of you might have even been engineers, you know what innovation is all about, or other kinds of innovation. So you have an understanding of technical innovation or business innovation. But in this country, social innovation from time immemorial has happened alongside, for various reasons. Okay? And then probably I could go and tell you that India's philosophy, social and cultural heritage has nurtured a very different kind of society. Many people who come from outside, it's different from our times. When I went to Europe, India was considered a country of snake charmers. We have evolved since. People know that we do other things, so much so that Mr. Trump doesn't think we are a developing country anymore. Well, I have no comments about Mr. Donald Trump, but that's his view on life and on India. One of the first NGOs of the world is here, was born in this country. I'm not saying the first, I'm not a historian, but this is one of the first, the Buddhist Sangha. This was the organization that actually created and propagated Buddhism all over the world. I use the word created because Buddha himself did not create the religion Buddhism. So these are people who travel the length and breadth of the Asian continent, all the way up to Japan, China in the north, Sri Lanka in the south, let's say the East Indies, Indonesia, Malaysia in the east, carrying the message of education sometimes, because if you remember Nalanda as a university, Takshila, as universities flourished in those times. So even education, as a center of education, center of learning, different social systems, they carried that knowledge. So that's one of the earliest NGOs, if you will. So maybe we could say with some truth that the NGOs were probably, we were one of the first countries where NGOs were born. And the Buddhist Sangha was quite big. Those who visited the Nalanda ruins would see how many monks used to live in that university as residential people. Okay? I don't know whether anybody has here, but it's a very interesting visit. And this is a much more modern NGO, which is 100 and some years old, the Ramakrishna Mission. And many people who visit Calcutta today do so because it's the city of Ramakrishna and Vivekananda. There were people who lived here, flourished here. Vivekananda, apart from everything else, was a great social and educational reformer. The Ramakrishna Mission is one of the foremost organizations that work in the social sector. Okay? Lot to learn from them in the sense that they do their work in a very structured way. So when you have the Ramakrishna Mission visiting us, and therefore you talk to them. One of the newest arrivals, not the least, is Missionaries of Charity. In case the name is not familiar to some of you, it should be, but if it is not, it's the organization that was created, built, run, and continues the mission of Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa is one person who lived in this city, who became an Indian, if I may put that word to you, and is one of the Nobel Prize winners for peace, and she lived here in this city till a few years ago. And that is also another thing. If you look at the social sector without being very, very fascinated with the word NGOs, Tata's pioneered industry without losing track of society. So the Tatas have also done, as a business house, a lot in the social sector. In fact, if I may quickly gloss over that, ITC will be visiting us. ITC is one of the largest Indian conglomerates today. ITC also, they have started coming the last few years. They talk about how NGOs and business partner each other. So you'll have ITC, their social hub, visiting us, and how does business NGO partnership work? So you have these things, actually great learning experiences. Now, it's about you. So what we have we said that many budding MBAs are investing their dreams in social innovation, not just business loans. See the numbers among you who actually said that I will work part-time, full-time in an NGO, I want to invest some of my time. So what are the issues that people are fascinated by today and we've not solved? Education, healthcare, addressing the needs of the socially or economically backward, fair trade. Today's global manager also, in case you don't want to touch the other NGOs anymore, today's global manager needs to be highly sensitized to these issues and concerns. Okay? So, for instance, I'll give you one example which I often quote. Calcutta, very close to Calcutta, is a small town called Singhu. It's the latest confrontation between politics and economics, because our current chief minister became the chief minister because she drove out a factory from there. Okay? So that whole issue. So unless as managers you are sensitized to the advocacy, to the needs of people. What happened? Where did the Tatas go wrong? It's a long story, but basically they depended too heavily on the West Bengal government. They didn't do their own advocacy, their own lobbying, their own talking to among the people. When you don't do that, you lack what is called social legitimacy. Society doesn't approve of what you're doing, or they don't understand what you're doing. And then politics steps in and everything goes wrong. Okay? So, in a radically different world, which it is today, in the UK, in the US, in Germany, in France, in India, everywhere you see, what is happening in the last 2 or 3 years are things we could never imagine would happen in society, in the world. So NGOs are being asked to address the challenges facing civil society. What do I mean by that? Many of the things that NGOs do are things that when we were your age, we thought government would do. We've since given up on governments. Okay? So you think NGOs should be doing those things. Many of these things are jobs of government. Setting up good hospitals, setting up good schools, organizing all of this supposedly should be government. In fact, if you look at fair trade, the origin of fair trade, you might want to make a few notes as you go along, because some of the words, I don't know, are you familiar with the word Tatas? Is that something that rings a bell? Tatas, something you might have heard of? As a business house? The company, yes. But now I'll use an expression which might not be familiar with you. So if I say something and I don't realize that you have not understood, please make a note. You can ask me later. So if we look at fair trade, for instance, one of the pioneers of this was Gandhi. And after Gandhi, once he died in independent India, we set up what is called the Khadi Industries Emporiums. You walk into these huge showrooms, they're empty. No people there. There's salespeople who are there, who are in a very bored and disinterested look. The government pays them salary end of the month, and nothing much more happens. Okay? So, we are giving up on government. We are saying, let NGOs do this. So it's not, what's happening here is not just academic debates and discussions or the fate of prescriptive do-good theories, but much more. We're actually talking of the future of the planet in a very nutshell, in a small nutshell. What are some of the interesting features of this course? One is you get to share the entrepreneur's experience. They come and talk to you, some of them who've actually been entrepreneurs in these NGOs. They come and tell you why they started, how they started. You get a first-hand sharing. Sometimes you might actually get transported into that world because you sometimes do it with videos and all that. So if you're not keeping track, you might get lost in that world. You actually get a first-hand sharing of their experiences. You get live sessions with NGOs, all of them. And then you do assignments with NGOs. But I've made a particular qualifier there, grassroots NGOs. I don't send you for projects to the biggest NGOs who are flush with money, who can afford to pay for it themselves. I try and send you to people who are struggling, who are making a mark, and who cannot afford somebody from Louvain or somebody from IIM Calcutta. You get me? So therefore, these are people who are trying. And one day if they have succeeded, like Mr. Ghosh of Bandhan has succeeded, then that's another story. But till then they are not where they were. What are tentative topics? The reason it's a kind of running course, it's interaction. So it doesn't necessarily mean all of this will be done exactly in this way. So since I'm dealing with B-school people, I need to be very careful. I qualify it by saying tentative. Okay. Today is this introductory session. The next one is role of NGOs in India's development, and we'll cover that. Those are topics that we'll cover. This will not necessarily be done in this order. These are some of the cases you'll do. So the topics around which the cases will be built. Okay? So that's not tomorrow. But these are some of the things we'll cover. So how have NGOs contributed to the development in India? What is the world of NGOs? What do we mean by world of NGOs? This is, for instance, what happens tomorrow and the next day. What is their world? And then there will be a lot of interactions. Then with different other NGOs. Then there will be this topic, leadership in NGOs. There will be how do you manage an NGO organization. I was just sharing, and maybe we'll come back to it sometime later. I said to somebody here, Shreya probably, or who did I say? I said it to you, that if you do a part-time thing with NGOs, do you think you can find the time? Because there are most NGOs in India do not pay anybody anything, not even a bus fare. They cannot afford it, right? So how do you manage an organization like that when you have so many part-timers who come at their convenience when their workplace spares them? So you have a huge job at hand. You have people who come and visit you either on weekends or when it suits them, when they are in the city. And then you have a few people who are not being able to meet you're not even getting their bus fare, so they are coming and saying, well, I'm looking for a job, so their CVs are out in the market. How do you manage that and still get the work done? How do you, for instance, survive with some government funding, which is assured for 1 year, you don't know what to do the next year? Because the people you are talking to, the people you are catering to, need your help year after year. So if you know that you have money only for a few months, what do you do the next year? So these are some of the questions. How do you manage that organization? We have another very interesting professor who's taking classes in this course for a long time. So this session is not mine, but I'll tell you. Many of you have already met him. Professor Bhaskar Chakraborty. You know him, right? So Professor Bhaskar Chakraborty is a very interesting guy, but here in this course, because you are in Bengal, and this is actually, other than Snigdha Jyoti, most of you are from elsewhere, you get to understand experiments of Tagore, Rabindranath Tagore, in the social sector. Yeah, Sri Niketan particularly. So these are the experiments he showcases in this class. He brings things for you to read, interact. So it's an interactive session, but you learn homegrown learnings from Bengal. From this, you know, it's just a 2-hour drive from here, or 2.5-hour drive from here. What are the learnings that we have retained over the last 7 to 8 years? Then there's fair trade, which is in the West, it's quite an important theme. In India also beginning to be. Business NGO partnership, and last but not least, social innovation. So these are some of the topics we cover. So, interaction with some important entrepreneurs and NGO organizations in different fields are part of this course. This is the lady you will see tomorrow. One interesting feature of this lady is, other than the fact that she is still very beautiful in her mid-60s, is the fact that she actually trained as a danseuse. She's a dancer by training. Okay? And, but what she does here is, so you see, she calls it dance therapy. She's converted lives of prisoners. That means die-hard people who murder people. They've kind of changed their lives. They've reformed themselves. So that is what she's going to do, because you see, that's a huge social problem. In countries, so in a country like ours, when people have so little access to just 2 meals a day, you can murder even for lack of food. But then you're condemned for life. And if you are outcast for life, then what happens? How do you mainstream these people? So this lady has done this very successfully. And this is something where we have been a leading example in India. Because what she has done, others are trying to copy. She's doing this for several years now, and she'll talk about this dance and cultural therapy, how to bring jail inmates, convicts, murderers into the mainstream. And let her talk about it tomorrow. She'll be here tomorrow. That's what I said. Today is the last day. You'll see me on my own. This is a film. She was about 3 or 4 years ago. This is a Bengali film made on her life and her work. So you can see this is the thing. It's a feature film that was made on her life and work, and one prominent Bengali actress actually featured in this film. So you'll actually meet somebody tomorrow on whom a movie has been made. Same like Super 30, but this is in Bengali.
No, sir, I also saw he was also inmates.
Oh yeah, this guy is a convict. He's now become an actor. He's now a mainstream actor of Bengali cinema, but he was a convict in jail. So that's tomorrow. Okay, I won't give you all of them. You meet this guy who was a personal physician of Mother Teresa. And that's the reason why he started his NGO. He's a doctor by profession. And this is what he does, promoting child and maternal health, literacy, etc. It's a very compelling story. You get to understand that why do people do this? They don't suddenly do this because one fine morning they wake up and they read an item in the newspaper and say, let's start doing it. That's not how it happens. It doesn't even happen sometimes, okay, let's get to know the world of NGOs. Maybe it does, but for these people there's been a real story behind it. This guy, probably by coincidence, became her personal physician, did that for 2 years, and apparently Mother Teresa asked him, now you do something on your own. So you hear his story, the story of his life. Very poor person, no longer very poor, but at that time came from a village. Incidentally, a very unique person because he trained in his higher medical education in Belgium. So usually when he comes, you'll find quite a few Belgian and other Italian, other European students, and all the time he's traveling. So that's what I said. He's usually no more than 3 days in Calcutta or India. Okay, then these are guys who work on renewable energy, Vinay Jaji. That's another world. It's nothing in common with maternal health or child health or whatever, renewable energy. NGOs are actually working on that, or social enterprises rather are working on that. So this is the renewable energy. Then this one is something which is just next door. So those who want the comfort of walking to an NGO, this is one place, but I can tell you they are spoiled because they get so many people from IIM for the same reasons. So many IIM professors work with them. So therefore, I don't want to name the profs, but so therefore, so you'll find them. So they support deprived children and women, and they work on health, nutrition, education, and protection. Then we have CRY. CRY is quite a famous Indian NGO. One of the reasons they are famous for is they prepare greeting cards, which we send people for birthdays, for anniversaries, whatever, and they get it done. They basically work on child rights. So we'll have this lady coming and talking to us. Remember, these are all tentative dates. Then this lady, Kanchan Gaba, she's blind, and so therefore she works with people who are disadvantaged physically, particularly people who have physical disability, blindness, and such things. She herself is blind. So she's a very erudite person, and you can basically, this is the lady on the left. This is a minister here in Bengal, Southern Punjab. Then you have Helpage India. Helpage is a worldwide organization which works with elderly people. And the director advocacy will come here. They work for old people. Then you have this, which is being showcased by the World Health Organization as a landmark achievement in the world. It's a WHO case study, World Health Organization case study. These people are called sex workers, who have actually fought and gained the right of saying that, okay, commercial sex is as much a profession as anything else. So therefore, how have they rehabilitated themselves in society? How are their children getting educated? How are their rights being protected? So this whole thing, so Dr. Jana is not coming. Dr. Kutim Rai from this organization will be coming here. And you will see here there's a lot of human rights in the whole thing. Rights, dignity, social status, and then how do they bank? Because these people don't want to go to the bank. So how do they, so these are all very different stories. So you'll meet them. Then these are people who work, this is a very famous NGO working on education, Vikram Shila, and they do quality education, but particularly for rural and underprivileged children. But excellent work they do. Okay. Then this is a doctor who works with one of the most prominent hospital chains in India, but he's taking specialized medical care to the village where there's nothing. In fact, he insists every year, and his is the first project that you have to do, or any two of you or three of you may like to do, and he takes you physically there. That means and he keeps you there, he organizes stay for you, and then you basically suggest to them how to take the thing forward. So, with a bunch of doctors, people, social workers, so the village people then don't have to come to the city for treatment. That's the idea. A lot of it is telemedicine, how you do that, those kinds of things. So you can see, we have different worlds to explore. Then of course there's Professor Bhaskar Chakravarti I talked to you about. These are your puja vacation days, these midterm, summer placement. Then Mr. Ghosh, this is the founder of Bandhan. Today Bandhan has a development arm and also the bank, because he's become so famous now after the bank, and he's here with village people, and these are programs they do: poverty relief, irrigation, women empowerment. So this is the development arm. So this is by no means the corporate arm. Okay? He shares the story of his life, how he's, so you share that experience first. This is fair trade. So this organization exports work from rural Bengal across the world. So any country that you are from, their work finds way to those countries. Definitely all of Europe, America, and other places it goes. So this is fair trade. And again, this is a lady who with her boss travels all the time across the world. So they make time to come to this course to interact with you. I'm sure, and they say the projects, if they are good, they tell me, and it works, they implement it immediately. Then this is ITC Agro. Manjunath Lakshmikantan is coming this time, he's a regional manager. How do they build rural capacity in partnership with local communities to develop water and forest resources, non-farm livelihoods, empowerment of women economically. Then there's Ramakrishna Mission, and this person is working with them for 19 years. They come and talk about how they do their work. Now, I told you, this is the one thing that after this nothing more can be said. This is what it is. This will all get uploaded onto the course web, you don't need to take screenshots. So, this is as I said, the most important component of whatever. Then, this is the case analysis. Okay, that's what we call project here, but actually it's case analysis. Case meaning this. Okay, and this 25 is actually two components, 20 plus 5. So 20, you depend actually, it's a group evaluation. This is individual work. Each person is graded separately. Even if 3 people do a project, an assignment, you have to divide your field of work, and then each person is graded separately. This, on the contrary, 20 marks out of this 25 is actually group. So if the group does well, you get that marks. But 5 is class interaction, class participation. You see, all through these sessions you will be participating. So 5 marks are reserved for that. I've clubbed it together to write 25, but it's actually case analysis plus 5. So maybe you should amend this, so otherwise it's at variance with this. And the quiz is 35, where I said you should time yourself so that you finish. And since there's nothing that is rote learning, nothing to be memorized, it should be easy provided you have time to yourself. Okay. This is after quiz is over. This is Professor Rai. He's with the Xavier Institute of Management in Bhubaneswar, and he's worked for 23 years as a professor and 8 years in business development. And so these are some of the topics he covers: sustainable markets, social business development, challenges in creating inclusive business models, and scaling and sustaining social business models. So this is his schedule. Now, why I am saying this to you today, do not, for the life of you, don't. This is 3 days and he does 4 classes. If you miss out here, then your attendance becomes a problem. So I'm telling you, November 14 to 16. 16 is a Saturday, it's not Diwali. Okay? So be sure that you are here. Because I know exchange students buy tickets to visit, all those things happen. So this is class schedule at a glance, which we will give it to you. Alright? So you can plan your holidays, that's a dire need. You can pace yourself, you know what is there. Okay? The clock has struck 11:45, I have no right to keep you anymore. Thanks a lot, see you tomorrow. Please come, because these are experiences, don't rely on third persons to tell you.